Hi, my name is Taya Taberna, and in my author discussion, I will be presenting the life of Malcolm X and his impact he's made on the world. Alright, so Malcolm X was originally known as Malcolm Little. He was born May 19th in Omaha, Nebraska, and was the seventh in line out of his eight siblings. In his early childhood and teen years, Malcolm and his family had faced many obstacles regarding segregation. They had multiple run-ins with the KKK. In fact, Malcolm was only 4 when KKK members smashed all the windows in his family's home, even after the family moved to avoid more of these incidents continued to follow them. So shortly after moving, their house was set on fire, and emergency operators, who were actually white, did nothing at all to stop it. And then continuing some of his early childhood events. So there was the accidental death of his father, Earl, who was supposedly killed in a car accident, but it's believed that it was really the works of white supremacists. And you can see I have a little article shot of it on the screen right there. And because of this, his mother became mentally and emotionally unable to care for herself, let alone her children. So she was admitted into psychiatric care in a mental asylum, while Malcolm and his siblings were all separated into the foster care system. And as Malcolm grew, his potential as a successful man was very prominent in school, but he dropped out at 15 to live with his older sister and work as a shoe shiner instead. And then Malcolm's shoe shining eventually led him to join the urban crime scene, but later he was caught and charged for burglary, serving a 6-year sentence. And his time in prison would eventually guide him towards becoming a leading figure and minister in the Nation of Islam. And after he joined it, that's exactly what he did. It was also known as the Black Muslims. The religion is essentially what drove Malcolm to form the idea that something had to be done to make and enforce change in the world, or else they'd keep living in this abusively segregated society, and he wanted a revolution by any means necessary. So, in the Norton Anthology of African American Literature, Malcolm X's autobiography expresses the ins and outs of his experience through life, um, kind of like along the lines of what I had previously shared in this presentation, but in more immense detail. So, one of the most striking stories he described was when he was explaining his views about white folks and how he considered the white man as the devil. And he was devoting his life to sharing that idea for others to follow and believe. And I think this gave us a great idea of his views toward white people, and I feel that a lot of these thoughts are like deep rooted to the traumatic events of his childhood. He experienced and the evil he felt from white people in those situations he was put in. In his autobiography, he explained his point of view um, of being abruptly woken up to sounds of guns, shouting, and smoke and flames as his home was burning around him. And they barely made it out before the house and structure crashed just directly on top of them. And as they were crying and yelling, and like him and his siblings and his whole family was just so distraught. The people that they looked for help, like the emergency, like first callers to firemen and policemen, they just came and stood there and watched because they were all white and they didn't want to do anything about it. So I'm sure, like as a child, I can only imagine that kind of impact it would leave on me, that type of event, and um, just being so young and experience something like that is just insane. And also, this wasn't even his first experience of similar events as well. So I can understand where his hatred and resent towards white people come from. Um, so in his autobiography, he also reiterates his passion for the Islamic religion, and African Americans, also supporting them by backlashing on Christian faith. He says that it's gotten us nowhere and believing in it does nothing for the black people of America, but Islam actually had the power to fight against Christianity for 1,000 years, and it's the only religion that can withstand Christianity in his eyes. So this is just me. So Malcolm stated that he believed Christianity sowed racism, which is the biggest failure of that religion. I feel as though a lot of Malcolm's opinions are very prejudicial and a little bit aggressive at times, and it may seem to hold some truth, and I can see why his followers would find appeal in that, but I believe that not everyone is completely defined by their religion or their ethnic background, their gender, etc. And you cannot, or like you should not, make judgments based off of one portion of a person's life. And even though it's hard, even in today's society, not to make snap judgments and not to follow stereotypes, but that's exactly what he's kind of doing here. So I stand by his main objective of like persevering towards achieving equality and fighting for freedom. However, I can't entirely support the means he's going about it. Malcolm made the decision to leave the Nation of Islam after discovering that his mentor and teacher, Elijah Muhammad, violated his own teachings and by impregnating multiple women out of wedlock, and he tried passing it off as part of the religion as if it were okay, but I think Malcolm knew a lot better, and he couldn't just stand like idly by someone who he distrusts. And after this turn of events, Malcolm still continued fighting for civil rights and justice for black people. However, he was assassinated shortly after in 1965 at the age of 29. So he was so young, he had a predicament actually that he would be killed because of how unafraid he was to share his thoughts and opinions to others. And I think he knew eventually that someone would be offended by it. So he would multiple times refer to himself as a dead man already. And he even said that in an interview I watched as well, which I will show right now.
Of the black Muslims, and I have never had that desire. But I do have this desire. I have a desire to see the Afro-American in this country get the human rights that are his due. I believe that the Islam religion is the best religion for our people because it creates unity and it gives one dignity and racial confidence and all of these things that are necessary to make a complete human being.
Are you not perhaps afraid of what might happen to you as a result of...
So just off that first part, I'll continue playing the video after. You can see his passion towards Islam and the religion and why he loves it so much and stands by it. And even just like reading his autobiography, talking about it, you can see it and interpret it, but you're given a live interpretation through this interview through CBS.
Making these revelations?
Oh, yes. I probably am a dead man already.
What do you mean?
And that's when he refers to himself as dead man already because of his opinions and everything.
When you understand the makeup of the Muslim movement and the psychology of the Muslim movement, as long as if I myself, by having confidence in the leader of the Muslim movement, if someone came to me and I had no knowledge whatsoever of what had taken place, and they told me what I'm saying, I would kill them myself. The only thing that would prevent me from killing someone who made a statement like this, they would have to be able to let me know that it's true. Now, if anyone had come to me other than Mr. Muhammad's son, I never would have believed it, even enough to look into it. But I had.
And with Muhammad's son, he was referring to how Muhammad's son was the one who shared that the rumors were true about Eli Muhammad, his father, impregnating all those women, and what eventually led him to leave Nation of Islam. And to wrap it up, Malcolm X, although very controversial, has still left a legacy on American history. He remains still a large part of the civil rights movement, and his work has motivated others to never stop fighting for freedom and civil rights, and he shines light on the idea that change can always happen. My works cited. Thank you.